Welcome to the Airline Pilot Podcast. I'm Jason Ambrosi. Lithium-ion batteries have become an integral piece of technology for modern life. From electric vehicles and medical devices to phones and portable chargers, we are flying with more batteries than ever. Each battery represents an increased threat to lives and aircraft. Thermal runaway can happen at any point with any battery. As the number of batteries and the capacity continue to increase, the threat of a difficult-to-contain fire grows on every flight. Because they are everywhere, we need to remain prepared and vigilant for the hazards proposed by lithium-ion batteries on the flight deck, in the cabin, or in our cargo holds. We also need our passengers and cargo shippers to understand the danger they could place a flight in by carrying a lithium-ion battery in the passenger compartment or improperly labeling or checking them in cargo holes. I'm joined by Captain Dave Schlichting, the head of ALPA's Dangerous Goods Program and a 777 captain at FedEx, to talk about the dangers of lithium-ion batteries, how pilots can prepare for these risks, and what ALPA is doing to mitigate the threat. Thanks for being with us today, Dave. We all hear about lithium-ion batteries. Can you tell us why they're so dangerous?
Lithium-ion batteries, obviously they're very useful. They contain a chemical reaction, so you can charge it. It gets an energy density to it, and it's discharged in an orderly fashion while you're using your phone, while you're using your computer. Obviously, we have them in everything, and they're very useful. The problem is if there's a defect or damage to the battery, it will then discharge all that energy in very fast and in very uncontrolled fashion. So that chemical reaction basically has lost its control. And that's where you get the smoke, the flames, ejecting molten parts, those sorts of things.
That sounds good. Why is it a particular concern for you all in the cargo business?
It's one of the main concerns right now for the cargo side of the airline industry is in the mid-2010s, 2015, 2016, they said that only cargo aircraft could carry batteries by themselves. Mm-hmm. So whenever shippers are trying to move large volumes of batteries, which obviously batteries are in everything for commerce, they have to move a lot of that product. And if they're moving it by air, it's going to go on a cargo airplane. They can't put it in belly freight on a passenger airplane.
Oh, right.
So as we get multiple consignments that come in and those get consolidated onto pallets, now you have large concentrations of batteries in very close proximity. So if we do have an incident where one of them goes into a thermal runaway, then it's like matches in a matchbook potentially.
Yeah, then they all go.
Then
so
they can all
go.
go.
A really bad situation. I got it. Is there anything pilots can do to prepare for a potential lithium-ion battery fire or a thermal runway?
The biggest thing really that pilots can do is to preemptively take a look at your QRH or your manuals, your operations manual, and know what material you have in there. Unfortunately, some operators don't even have procedures in their QRH for a thermal runaway in the cockpit, or most of them are very good about cabin. The cabin seems to have been addressed. Most manuals have processes and procedures for the back. What we're finding were the deficiencies on the flight deck. What do pilots do? Obviously, is there's two of you operating. One of you has a thermal runaway event, especially if it goes into full thermal runaway, where it's actively ejecting smoke or molten parts. There's potential loss of aircraft control. Obviously, you're going to lose visibility on the flight deck very quickly. So you want to know for each pilot, does my operator have something for me in the QRH? If we don't, is it in a different manual? Where do I look for it? And have a sense of what you're going to do in that situation, because it really is much like a memory item. Although, unlike where, let's say, you're extending your flaps and they come out asymmetrically, you can maintain control of the airplane, get the book out, deal with that situation in slow time as a crew. Usually, if you're going to have a thermal runaway in the cockpit, it's going to be an event that has to be handled very quickly, and usually by only one pilot, because the other pilot has to have control of the airplane.
Yeah, so that's definitely a no-time bucket kind of situation. So what are we here at ALPA doing to try to limit the dangers of these batteries?
One of the biggest things that we're trying to do right now at ALPA is advocacy and education. As we engage with, say, PHMSA in the U.S. through ALPA and ICAO, I am the panel member for the Dangerous Goods panel at ICAO. So we have a voice at the table, but so does industry, so do regulators. And like right now we're going through, PHMSA has a rulemaking out on some automation for dangerous goods. We are very actively providing input to them, and we're addressing all the safety concerns, but they are getting input from those others, from industry, from manufacturers, from retailers, and they have to consider all of that. The one thing that we do have that always helps us is ALPA, as we've said, is the largest non-governmental safety organization. When we come to the table with that, although we don't drive the agenda, our opinion is very heavily considered. And the other thing that we do continually is engagement, so that we have relationships with, especially with state regulators and with OEMs, so that when there is opportunity, say, to make changes, that they understand who we are, they understand that we come with safety and not really with any other agenda, and they consider our input, usually very heavily.
What improvements need to be made to reduce the risk of lithium-ion battery fires?
Unfortunately, a lot of the improvements that need to be made will either need to be made at the battery level by the manufacturers or at the OEM level with fire suppression systems, fire suppression capabilities. So what we're left with is sort of at the operator level. One of the things that the FAA has put out in a number of advisory circulars, SAFOs and infos, which are, again, just advisory, but they do say that operators should understand the capability of their products. So what kind of fire suppression system do you have? What is it capable of combating? Have you bought a fire containment product, a fire containment bag? Have you tested that? How good is it? And then have you developed processes and procedures for your crews in using those capabilities to fight lithium battery fires, or I should say thermal runaways,
right,
in the cockpit or on the airplane?
So you mentioned fire suppression. What fire suppression systems exist on cargo aircraft today, and what improvements have been made?
So most manufacturers, the main ones being Airbus and Boeing, which is what most of us fly, those two manufacturers in 2015, as lithium batteries were coming to the fore and we started to see large volumes of them being transported, they both basically notified ICAO, notified the U.S., all the state regulators, that their aircraft were not tested and certified to deal with lithium battery fires. So they've said the aircraft itself is not capable of dealing with that. And so they've been actively saying the same thing, that the operators need to come up with procedures and processes that deal with, identify the holes, identify the gaps, and deal with those gaps in their capability.
So where do they still fall short when it comes to a lithium battery fire?
They still fall short in that, again, the aircraft itself, much if you have, say, a Class A fire where you've burning paper or burning clothes in a suitcase, the halon can take care of that. It can suppress the fire. You can land safely at a destination. It may even put the fire out. The aircraft is not going to suppress lithium batteries in thermal runaway. So some operators, some airlines have installed additional fire suppression systems on their airplanes. Like we at FedEx have done that on our long distance airplanes that were going to be in ETOPS environments and long way from landing. The others is they can have additional fire containment products. Now there's a standard for that, UL 5800. Most products were manufactured before there was a standard, so they may not meet those standards.
Gotcha, okay.
It's been encouraging recently to hear that a number of operators have realized that now that there's a standard, if their product doesn't meet it, they're looking for something that does. So that's a positive step that's being taken in that. And really, as I said earlier, the big one is for us as ALPA, all of our volunteers at the MEC level, is to be engaged with their company counterparts and saying, what are our processes and procedures? Do we have them? Are we training to them? Because the other thing that the FAA has recommended that we see a deficiency in is, even if they've established processes and procedures, they're in a book somewhere, is do you train to it? When, how often, and are your crews familiar with it? Or when you say thermal runaway to them, is that the first time they've ever heard that term or are not familiar with how it's going to even behave in the cockpit when it goes into thermal runaway?
I guess that's an important thing to point out is if you contrast the difference between a certain fire that we would normally put out with either a water or a halon fire extinguisher, you might try to do that, I guess, in this situation, and it's not going to have any effect, right?
One of the things about a thermal runaway for a lithium battery is it's a chemical reaction. And once that chemical reaction starts, you can't stop it, right? So a lithium battery thermal runaway is different than from a fire.
Right.
Now, what it can do is, if it goes into a thermal runaway, it can start the device on fire. It can start the backpack or the suitcase that it is on fire. And now you have a different problem.
Now you have both.
Right. And what the FAA does recommend is that when it's in its thermal runaway phase, it's actively emitting flame, is to try and suppress the flames with halon or with a water fire extinguisher. Now, once you have stopped that chemical reaction, Then you want to cool the device because most devices will have more than one cell. And so what's happened is one cell has gone into thermal runaway.
Okay.
It's gone through its chemical reaction process. The question that we don't really have a good answer to is, has it generated enough heat
To make the next one.
to make the next one go?
Ah.
So once there's the eruption and the suppression, you still want to cool that device, get it in a bucket of water, get it it's either in the galley or in the lab, and cool it down to make sure that other cell doesn't go into thermal runaway. You don't have a continuing problem.
Interesting. That is definitely interesting. Is there one thing that shippers and consumers should stop doing today to reduce this risk? And if so, what would it be?
For shippers and consumers, what I would say is on the outbound. So when you're buying a product, obviously buy it from a reputable dealer. People are people, right? They're going to look, do I want to buy it from the OEM at 3 times the price, or am I going to buy it secondhand at a fraction? For lithium battery type products, you should always be buying the high quality thing.
Okay.
Because even if it gets to you, once you get it in your device in your house, it can go into thermal runaway with your children. It could go into thermal runaway and damage your house. And obviously for us on the airplane, we want to make sure we have quality product. So I would say buy from a reputable, because what we found is that the OEM type manufacturers do a very good job with quality control. We usually get product that doesn't have issues with it. The other thing I would caution shippers and consumers on is if you're returning products, if you're unsure, take the extra step, do a little research, because what we've seen in the past is some people have taken 2 or 3 batteries and just thrown them in a bag or in a box together and shipped it, and not really understanding what it is, what problem that can cause. When they get questioned what's in here, if you don't declare it properly, now you've got potentially thermal runaway that's moving through the shipping system.
Right.
And again, so it should be packaged properly and it should be declared properly. So we, the industry, are aware of it and can make sure we're mitigating it when it's on the airplane.
Oh, that's interesting. And I've learned from this conversation here. So I really appreciate, Dave, you taking my questions, and thanks for all the hard work that you do to address these risks that we face and from lithium-ion batteries and other dangerous goods. It's something that we don't think about every day. And it's great that we have folks like you behind the scenes that are working on this stuff to keep us safe.
Yeah, no, thanks very much for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Next month, ALPA is hosting our 70th Air Safety Forum in Washington, D.C., where our air safety organization will join experts from around the industry to discuss how we can improve safety and security in our industry. We'll be joined by partners in safety like NTSB Chairwoman Jennifer Homendy, Chief Aerospace Safety Officer for Boeing Don Ruman, and other experts from across aviation. You can follow along on our website at alpa.org, in the Airline Pilot magazine, and in future episodes of this podcast. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. And if you enjoyed this episode, let your fellow crew members know about the show. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, reach out to podcast@alpa.org. To listen and subscribe to the Airline Pilot Podcast or learn more about ALPA, check us out online at alpa.org or find us on all major podcast platforms. Until next time, this is the Airline Pilot Podcast. Production copyright ALPA 2026, all rights reserved. Thanks and have a safe flight.